Every morning before the world has fully awakened, a war begins. It's not waged on distant battlefields. No swords are drawn. No smoke rises. Yet this war is as real as anything you will face in life. It is the war within. The conflict between who you are and who you want to be. Between comfort and greatness. Between what is easy and what is meaningful. You feel it the moment you open your eyes. A subtle tug pulling you back under the covers, whispering that 5 more minutes won't hurt. And maybe it won't today. But 5 minutes becomes 10, 10 becomes 30, and soon the day slips by. Then the week. Then the month. Until the life you dreamed of becomes a story you tell yourself at night. Regret always starts as comfort. Stoicism doesn't sugarcoat this truth. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote in his private journals, not for praise, not for posterity, but to remind himself daily that life is war. A war against indulgence, laziness, distraction, self-deception. And that the enemy wears your face. Why do you think we hesitate to act on our goals? Why do we procrastinate on things that matter, yet pour ourselves into things that don't? It's not because we lack time. It's not even because we lack ability. It's because we haven't accepted that life demands a cost. Every inch of progress requires a choice. Will you remain in the comfort of safety, or will you step into discomfort for the sake of becoming more? This internal struggle, between the voice that says wait and the one that says act, is the essence of being human. It is the point at which the Stoic mind is forged. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Time is not our enemy. Excuses are. We become prisoners of our own rationalizations. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. It's too hard. I'm not ready. These are not truths. They are stories we tell ourselves to avoid the cost of growth. You must begin to see excuses for what they are: soft chains. Comfortable, velvet-lined shackles. They don't shout. They whisper. They don't restrain you forcibly. They convince you to stay where you are. But if you listen, truly listen, you will hear another voice. A quieter one. One that says, you were meant for more. That voice is your highest self. The version of you that knows that excellence is born in effort. That strength is not an accident, but a habit. That pain is not punishment, but a teacher. The Stoics did not chase pleasure. They pursued virtue. And virtue, as they saw it, was the reward for choosing the harder path. This is not to glorify suffering. Stoicism is not masochism. But it is a reminder that the comfortable path rarely leads to fulfillment. That comfort taken in excess becomes poison. Like a plant that dies when overwatered, the human spirit withers in too much ease. Ask yourself this: when have you grown most? Was it when everything was going your way? Or was it when life tested you and you didn't back down? Real power, real self-respect, comes from enduring what is hard and choosing what is right, even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. That's the battleground. Not in dramatic moments, but in small decisions repeated daily. Will you snooze the alarm or get up to train your mind and body? Will you complain or adapt? Will you scroll endlessly, numbing your discomfort, or will you sit with it and ask what it's trying to teach you? The Stoic warrior fights these battles silently. No applause. No validation. Just a steady, quiet resistance to mediocrity. And each victory, no matter how small, builds momentum. The moment you choose not to delay. The moment you do what you said you would. The moment you finish what you started. These moments become character. And character becomes legacy. The internal struggle never ends. But neither does your power to respond. You may not control the outcome. But you always control the effort. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the commander of your will. And in that sovereignty lies your greatest strength. Start today. Start small. But start. Because every time you win the war within, the world outside bends just a little more in your favor. Excuses are the great deceivers of progress. They are dressed in reason, cloaked in rationality, and they always arrive when you're about to take action. You don't notice them at first. They seem helpful. They offer comfort, justification, even compassion. You've had a long day, they say. You'll do it tomorrow. You deserve a break. But they lie. The Stoics knew this game well. They understood that the path to greatness isn't blocked by mountains, but by pebbles. Tiny excuses that accumulate until you no longer see the road. Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." Likewise, he who justifies everything eventually accomplishes nothing. And so, the battle is not in grand moments of decision. It is in the ordinary choices you face every day, whether to act or to delay. Think of the person you want to become. The version of yourself that lives with purpose, who fulfills their responsibilities with honor, who walks through life with quiet confidence and unshakable clarity. That person is not found. That person is built, brick by brick, discipline by discipline, one excuse defeated at a time. You cannot be both a servant to excuses and a master of your fate. We must learn to spot the excuses before they take root. Notice how they sound, soft, kind, almost reasonable. But ask this, will this thought lead me closer to the life I desire or further from it? Will this moment of delay cost me the momentum I've worked to build? Every excuse postponed becomes a habit reinforced. You're not just skipping a task, you're training your mind to accept weakness as the standard. Epictetus was blunt. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This is the power of clarity. When you are clear on your purpose, excuses begin to lose their voice. The moment you say, I do not negotiate with myself, is the moment you reclaim your life. So let's speak plainly, there is no secret to success. There is no mystical alignment of stars. There is only the discipline to act when you don't feel like it. There is only the strength to do what needs to be done, especially when it's unpleasant. Relying on motivation is a fragile strategy. It's like chasing the wind. It comes and goes. Discipline, on the other hand, is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. The Stoics didn't wait to feel ready. They didn't consult their moods to determine their duties. Marcus Aurelius, in the depths of fatigue and the weight of empire, wrote, At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. That is the ultimate call to responsibility, not just to perform tasks but to fulfill the duty of being fully alive, fully engaged, fully accountable to your potential. Build your day around discipline. Wake up not because it's easy but because it's time. Train not because you feel strong but because strength is born in the doing. Work not for applause but because effort itself is sacred. The disciplined life is not a boring life. It's a free life. When you are no longer enslaved by feelings, you become the master of your own fate. You might say, but I'm not naturally disciplined. That's fine. Neither were the Stoics. They weren't born with unwavering strength. They earned it. Through practice. Through failure. Through standing back up when they fell short. The good news? You don't need to be extraordinary to begin. You need only to begin, and be willing to continue even when it's difficult. Let each day be a proving ground. Let your actions reflect not who you are, but who you are becoming. Tie your identity to effort, not emotion. If you're tired, show up tired. If you're afraid, show up afraid. If you feel nothing, show up anyway. Because the act of showing up is itself a declaration. I refuse to be ruled by weakness. I refuse to betray the vision I have for myself. There is something sacred about a person who keeps their word, not to others but to themselves. Someone who doesn't wait for the perfect conditions, but creates the conditions through their will. This is the Stoic warrior, not loud, not boastful, but relentless. In private, in silence, they rise each day and do what must be done. That can be you. That must be you. Because this world doesn't need more comfort seekers. It needs people of principle, of backbone, of grit. And no one can give that to you. It is not inherited. It is earned. It is forged in the choices you make when no one is watching. So the next time an excuse arises, pause. Breathe. And remember, the comfort it offers is temporary, but the cost is eternal. And if you fall, get up. If you slip, return to form. Discipline is not perfection. It is persistence. It is the stubborn refusal to stay down. And every time you rise, you lay another stone in the foundation of your legacy. You've heard it before. Motivation is fleeting. It's a spark, not a furnace. And yet so many people sit and wait, hoping that spark will come before they act. They wait to feel like going to the gym, to feel like starting that business, to feel like facing the uncomfortable conversation. But the Stoics teach us that greatness is not born from feelings. It is born from doing what is necessary regardless of what you feel. Discipline is the antidote to emotional inconsistency. When the day comes and your energy is low, when your mind is clouded, when your heart isn't in it, those are the defining moments. That's when your principles are tested. That's when the person you've been pretending to be falls away, and the real you stands exposed. In those moments, who do you become? The Stoic chooses action. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Marcus Aurelius never asked himself whether he felt like being an emperor each day. He reminded himself that he was born for the task at hand. If it is not right, do not do it, he said. If it is not true, do not say it. No mention of emotion. Only duty. Only clarity. This is where real growth happens. Not when things are going well, but when you continue forward in spite of discomfort. The disciplined man wakes up when the alarm rings, not because he wants to, but because he said he would. He trains his body and mind, not for vanity but for resilience. He does what needs to be done, not when it's convenient but because it's consistent with who he's becoming. Let this sink in. Every time you act without waiting for motivation, you weaken the hold that emotion has over your destiny. It's not that emotions are evil. They're human. But when they begin to dictate your decisions, you hand over your power. You become a servant to your internal weather, drifting from task to task, purpose to purpose, depending on whether you're having a good day. And the truth is, you won't have many good days. Not in the way you expect. There will always be stress, resistance, delay. That's life. Waiting for a perfect day is the enemy of progress. The Stoics didn't suppress emotion, they mastered it. They didn't kill feeling, they trained it. They created space between stimulus and response, between the desire to quit and the act of continuing. They learned to say, this is what I feel, but this is what I choose. And in that choice they became free. Discipline is not punishment. It's freedom. The disciplined individual doesn't need external motivation. He doesn't need a coach screaming in his ear, or a social media post reminding him to hustle. His life is a quiet contract with himself, and he honors it daily. You've likely seen this truth in action. The runner who trains before sunrise. The writer who shows up at the blank page again and again. The parent who stays calm under pressure, who leads with strength, who sacrifices. These people are not superhuman. They're simply consistent. They act in alignment with what they value, not with what they feel. That can be your life too. Not an endless roller coaster of moods, but a steady march toward excellence. One disciplined step at a time. But here's the key. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things over and over again. It's not about grinding for the sake of appearance, but refining your life around your highest goals. It means saying no to what is convenient in order to say yes to what is meaningful. So take inventory. Look at your habits. Are they aligned with the life you claim to want? Or are they secretly feeding the version of yourself you say you're trying to outgrow? Discipline is not just about waking up early. It's about living with intention. About eating to nourish, not just to taste. About reading to grow, not just to pass time. About choosing silence over noise, simplicity over chaos. It's about showing yourself again and again that you are trustworthy. That when you say you'll do something, you do it. This is how self-respect is born. And this is where we move into deeper territory. Because self-respect isn't something you chase, it's something you earn. Through repeated action. Through showing up when it matters. Through living in a way that your past self would admire and your future self will thank you for. The more you honor your word, the more you trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the less you need validation from others. And that, right there, is the ultimate freedom. Not needing permission to act, not seeking approval to live, not bending your principles to win favor. The Stoics were warriors of the inner world. Their battlefield was the mind, and their weapons were reason, clarity, and discipline. You are in that same battle now. The war between comfort and greatness is not won in grand gestures, but in the morning alarm you rise to meet, in the hard conversations you refuse to avoid, in the small, invisible disciplines that shape the character no one sees. Make your discipline so consistent that others start to wonder how you never miss. Let your life become a quiet rebellion against laziness, against distraction, against mediocrity. Let your habits scream on your behalf. And understand this, the stronger your discipline, the lighter your burden. Because when you do what needs to be done, you carry no guilt. You avoid no responsibility. You live with a clear conscience and a clear mind. That's the Stoic way. That's the disciplined life. Every struggle you've endured has left behind something more valuable than pain. It has left behind proof. Proof that you survived. That you kept walking when the ground beneath you was crumbling. That you didn't break even when you bent under pressure. But here's the paradox. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid struggle, not realizing that struggle is the very thing shaping them into someone capable of enduring even more. The Stoics didn't just accept hardship, they welcomed it. Because they knew that adversity was not an interruption to life, but a part of it. More than that, it was the forge. The very environment where character is shaped and sharpened. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." A life without trials is a life without toughness. And a person without toughness is a person easily broken. Think of the moments in your life that changed you. Were they comfortable? Were they easy? Of course not. It was the job loss that taught you resourcefulness. The heartbreak that forced you to build resilience. The failure that introduced you to humility. the illness that reminded you what truly matters. Each moment of pain, though unwelcome at the time, became a teacher. The difference between those who grow and those who shrink lies in how they interpret hardship. The weak curse it. The wise learn from it. The Stoic embraces it, not because they enjoy suffering but because they understand its power to reveal. You don't know who you really are until the storm hits, until the plan falls apart, until you're stripped of everything you thought defined you. That's when the real self stands up. That's when the voice inside says, "This is not the end." And that voice, that persistence, is who you truly are. We live in a time that glorifies ease, quick wins, instant gratification. But the Stoic knows that strength is born through friction. And greatness? It's earned through pressure. A diamond doesn't form without heat. A sword doesn't sharpen without resistance. So when life gets hard, don't rush to escape it. Stay in it. Study it. Mine it for wisdom. Because your struggle may very well be your strength in disguise. This is what it means to harness hardship. Not just to survive it, but to use it. To let it fuel your focus, deepen your discipline, and clarify your purpose. Pain doesn't have to be the end of the road. It can be the beginning of your greatest chapter. But to do that, you must master one critical thing: your emotions. Because nothing ruins your ability to grow from hardship more than being enslaved by your reactions. Emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. But if you let them rule your behavior, they will turn your temporary pain into permanent damage. Emotional mastery isn't about feeling nothing. It's about feeling everything, and choosing wisely anyway. It's when you're insulted but respond with calm. When you're overwhelmed but prioritize with clarity. When you're afraid but still take the next step forward. It's choosing not to lash out when you're angry. Not to give up when you're discouraged. Not to collapse when you're tired. It's standing your ground in the face of your own chaos. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That's where emotional control lives, in the gap between stimulus and response. And the wider that gap, the more powerful you become. We all know what it's like to regret a reaction. To say something we didn't mean. To make a decision from a place of fear or anger. The Stoic doesn't aim to suppress emotion, but to direct it. To convert frustration into fuel. Pain into presence. Fear into focus. Because the emotionally mastered man is unshakable. He can walk into any room, any storm, any crisis, and remain composed. Not because he's numb, but because he's trained. His first response is not panic, but presence. This self-mastery bleeds into every area of life. It improves relationships, sharpens decisions, and builds trust. First with others, but most importantly, with yourself. And this trust leads to something even greater: self-respect. When you control your impulses, when you keep your promises to yourself, when you act with integrity regardless of the circumstances, you begin to see yourself differently. Not as someone who simply reacts, but as someone who chooses. And from that choice, a quiet power begins to grow. You stop seeking applause. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop chasing recognition. Because the deepest form of respect is the one you earn with yourself. The Stoics didn't live for likes or approval. They lived by principle. They didn't chase status. They lived in accordance with virtue. Their reward wasn't in the outcome, but in the action. In showing up. In doing what was right. In holding themselves to a higher standard, even when no one was watching. That's what you're building now. Each time you rise above your impulses. Each time you use your pain. Each time you act with discipline, even when it's hard, you are writing your legacy. Not in words, but in action. Not in flash, but in consistency. And that legacy, over time, becomes unshakable. A man's legacy is not carved into stone or etched on plaques. It is written in the silent habits of his life. In how he treats others when no one is watching. In how he responds to setbacks. In what he chooses to do with his pain, his purpose, and his power. And above all, in the way he lives each day, not perfectly but deliberately. Legacy isn't something you chase when you're old. It is something you create now. With your choices. With your discipline. With your refusal to surrender to the internal struggle that keeps whispering, "Take it easy. Give in. You deserve a break." No. You deserve the life that comes from showing up relentlessly. Most people live by accident. They wake up reactive. Go through their day distracted. Numb their discomfort. Avoid their fears. And then wonder why life feels so hollow. But not you. Not anymore. You see the truth now. The battle was never out there. It was always within. And winning that battle begins with a decision. A decision to stop living below your potential. To stop feeding your comfort and start feeding your character. To stop waiting for motivation and start practicing discipline. Motivation is emotional, fleeting, unreliable. It's great when it's there, but it abandons you the moment life gets hard. Discipline, on the other hand, is loyal. It shows up whether you feel like it or not. It doesn't care about your mood, it cares about your mission. The Stoics built their lives on discipline, not because it was trendy but because it was necessary. They understood that greatness does not appear spontaneously. It is crafted, shaped, forced, one decision at a time. One quiet act of will against weakness. One moment where you choose to rise instead of retreat. Look at your life now. Not the outward appearance. Not the mask you show the world. But the real life, the one inside. Are you building something meaningful, or are you stuck in excuses? Because that's the other enemy of legacy, excuses. They are the language of stagnation. The quiet death of potential. Every excuse is a vote for mediocrity. A way to justify inaction. A slow erosion of the standards you once promised yourself. Excuses sound logical. That's why they're dangerous. I'm too tired. It's not the right time. I don't feel ready. But Stoicism cuts through all of that. It says, you don't need perfect conditions. You just need to begin. The power is not in waiting for the right moment, it's in making this moment right. Your legacy is not built someday. It is built today. In the silence of your choices. In the resistance you push through. In the discipline you show when nobody's watching. In the way you treat others, not to impress but because it's the right thing. When you master your internal struggle, you begin to lead from within. And people feel it. Not because you're louder but because you're steadier. They trust you. Not because you demand it but because you embody it. That's how leadership is formed, not through title or popularity but through quiet consistency. And that brings us to the most powerful part of legacy, the impact on others. The Stoics lived not just for themselves but for their community, for future generations. They knew that their decisions rippled outward, that how they conducted themselves affected not just their own lives, but the lives of those around them. When you conquer your internal chaos, you become a pillar of strength for others. Your discipline inspires. Your calm steadies. Your courage ignites. You become proof that it's possible to live differently, to live with principle in a world obsessed with comfort and convenience. And someday when your name is no longer spoken, your legacy will still live on. In the lessons you passed down. In the strength you modeled. In the decisions you made when no one else could see them, but everyone eventually felt their effect. Because legacies aren't monuments. They're movements. They are the lives we touch and the values we leave behind. So rise now. Not because it's easy. Not because you feel like it. But because your future self, and the world, deserve the version of you that wins the battle within. Don't wait. Don't drift. Don't excuse. Build. Through your actions. Through your stillness. Through your strength. A life of meaning. A life of virtue. A legacy of greatness. If this spoke to you, subscribe to Stoic Way for more timeless wisdom. Comment below. What internal battle are you overcoming today, and what will your legacy be?